Dixon.
Brilliant.
You have achieved so much in
Profit.
yeah, you've achieved so much in the media. You've been the religious correspondent for The Voice. You've worked with Keep the Faith magazine. You've interviewed so many, legendary figures, whether it be in gospel, Kurt Franklin, the Winans, Yolanda Adams. You've also interviewed the likes of David Cameron, and we are just honored to have you on the platform. So, yeah,
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
the first question we'd like to ask you is please tell us about your early life and growing up and studying at London South Bank University.
Oh God, that's so long ago. I'm the middle child of 7. Both my parents are from Jamaica. I grew up in Forest Gate. In fact, I'm living I'm sort of like, I had a flat which I sold, and I'm back with my mother. So I'm living in the house in which I grew up in. So I've remained in the area in which I lived as a child. What do I remember of my childhood? I remember going Sunday school, as a young child. My parents weren't Christian, but I used to go Sunday school. I used to enjoy putting on pretty dresses. I wanted to be a nurse. What else? I can't think. Sorry, it's so long ago. What else? I wanted to be a nurse when I was little. I was very good at school, at the primary school anyway, normally in the top 3 of that. What else do I remember of my childhood? I had an okay childhood. You know, my family told me that I was the apple of my dad's eye. I couldn't see it, but that's what they tell me and stuff. So they felt I was a little bit spoiled. I'm a kind of quite most probably an introvert, like to have my own way. So I'm the kind of child when my mum went to hit me, because I'm from that generation where people used to get, I just go, ah! And I didn't used to get hit. So yeah, I'm just my own person, I was just my own person. So that's what I remember. It's not, clear things, but that's what I remember. I remember my childhood being relatively happy. My mum worked at Ford's as a canteen assistant. My dad worked at Ford's as well in the car plant factory. They did shift work. But I just remember and I also remember my childhood having lots of nice dinners because my parents were a good cook. And just being a very stable Caribbean family. My dad liked cricket on Sundays. I used to think it was the most boring sport in the world. Watching, TV, playing out, just a normal Caribbean childhood, the front room being a special place, just all those things. That's what I remember.
Well, thank you for that. It was really, really cool to learn about your experiences.
Okay.
And
I hope yours
especially
is similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we understand.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I know that Michelle has some questions to ask you as well about, some of the hurdles you had to overcome. So Michelle, can you ask Marcia some of your questions?
Yeah, I just it's interesting what you said about your childhood. And did I hear you correctly to say that your parents weren't Christians, but you went
No,
to Sunday
but they
school?
sent me, like most Caribbean families, I
Yeah.
got sent to Sunday school. And my Sunday school was just down the road. It wasn't a black church, it was a United Reformed church. And the lady who was our Sunday school teacher, I remember her, she was a English lady in a wheelchair. And she just loved young people. And I enjoyed going there. We used to get a book every year. And they were just people who loved Jesus and they loved teaching Sunday school kids. And I used to have a good time. That's where I got to wear my best clothes. So I try them on and spin around in the mirror as you do as a little girl.
That's amazing. I guess I was just going to ask you, why did you decide to go into gospel journalism, as opposed to just mainstream
It
journalism?
was kind of like a fluke. So when I was 15, I in the Christian community, I got saved. I went along to a meeting and I got converted and wanted to follow God. So I became a Christian, went to the church, which was the New Testament Assembly in Leighton. And whilst I was there, my pastor was a lady called Pastor Io Smith, who's now deceased. And I don't know, I just got a passion that I wanted to do something for God. So my initial desire was to be a social worker. So I went to South Bank University and I studied social sciences. But whilst I was there, back in those days, we used to, which is a long time ago, we used to be able to get grants, as you most probably will recall. We could get a grant to go to university, but I had to supplement my grant by working. Not a problem. I enjoyed working, and the opportunity came up for me to work as a receptionist, part-time receptionist at the Voice newspaper. And then what happened, my friend, a lady called Juliet Coley, she presided over a department, marketing department, but she was also responsible for a page called the Soul Stirrings page. The lady who was doing it, she got promoted, and Juliet had to go and find somebody to do that page. So she said, I need someone to do this page. Can you think of somebody? And I put myself forward. So I got involved in journalism as a fluke because I was really training. Well, I don't think I would have made a good social worker, but initially I was thinking about becoming a social worker and stuff. And I got into the Voice by proxy, if that's the right phrase. So I was working at the Voice doing soul stirrings whilst I was still at South Bank University. It was called Polytechnic then. So I did it on the side really, and that's how it developed. So it wasn't something like I grew up thinking, oh, I want to be a gospel journalist. It just kind of happened, and the opportunity came up, and I just took it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that about wanting to be a social worker, because I'm a social worker.
How is it?
Yeah, and your personality kind of says to me, I think you'd have been an excellent social worker. I get the feeling that we've lost a champion there.
All right, okay. I salute you. I salute you.
Thank you. What were some of the hurdles that you had to overcome during your early years as a journalist?
I think most of what were my hurdles? I would say writing about the church community, because obviously sometimes as a journalist you're critiquing what you see. Because I was an opinionated young Christian, so there were issues happening at the time that I was writing about, and I suppose on reflection I was kind of quite critical. And the Black church is such is that people, when you turn the spotlight on it or you cover it, they want you to focus on the positive things, not the negative things. So I would say my challenge came more in terms sometimes from the church community itself, in terms of not wanting to be depicted in a certain light, particularly the gospel music community, because I used to review concerts and I was kind of quite honest and stuff like that. That's what I would say were my real challenges. And with regards in the paper, I was blessed in that they just left me to get on with it. Most probably because writing about the church, writing about gospel wasn't really considered kind of sexy. So I had free reign to do what I wanted to do. Initially at the time, I used to think, well, why don't they give me direction? Why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? But on reflection, it was good. I had freedom to write about anything, and I could be very overt about what I believed. So on reflection, it was a good thing.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll hand over to Mike.
I would just like to say, I was reading several of your articles on Keep the Faith, addressing social issues. So many of them are just so phenomenal. The way how
thank you.
You analyze it. And I was really moved by some of your, articles addressing the more sensitive issues like domestic violence, the sexual exploitation of women, and knife crime and stuff like that you address in your articles. So one thing I want to ask you is, why do you believe it is important that Christians take a proactive approach to addressing social issues?
Because we don't live in our vacuum. We've got to live out our faith in the real world, and the Black community, we are affected by a lot of the things that we write about. I mean, I would say for the last maybe 14, 15 years, one of my passions, one of the things that I've been really concerned about is the whole gun and knife crime thing. You know, it was gun, when I first started in getting involved in that issue, it was more gun crime, and it's moved to knife crime. And I suppose, you know, I'm one of those people, you know, obviously as a journalist, you get to write about all kinds of things, but I'm still kind of shocked that a community that was, I'm talking Black Caribbean community, and then obviously it spread to the African community that is kind of rooted in Christian values. We have a section of our community, young people, some of whom come from church backgrounds, who resort to violence to deal with, you know, how they, you know, to express as an outward expression of what they're feeling inside. And I suppose I write about it because I think that it's something that the church should play a part in combating. Those young people, their mothers most probably come to our churches. So it's like, what's happening? You know, there's some kind of gulf between what we're teaching from the pulpit and how it's impacting people that are listening and their children. We've got to find a way to play a part in actually dealing with those issues. Same with domestic violence. They say that 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence. Those women are within our churches. I mean, I've interviewed women who've experienced domestic violence. It's quite surprising the number of women who've experienced domestic violence. So I feel that they go to church, the pastors are preaching, they should say something about it. You know, have it in their sermon. They should be saying, you know, men, you should not be hitting your wives or your partners. They should be saying, women, if you are in a relationship where you feel threatened or you're being abused, speak to somebody in the church. If they're hitting you violently, you know, go and report them to the police. Yeah, I believe that. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about domestic violence. So I said, you know, if I get married and my partner hits me, I hope this doesn't put off potential partners, but if I get married and my husband hits me, I'll report it to the police. And why would I do that? I would do that because sometimes when it comes to domestic abuse, it's about power and control. And sometimes that person who's abusing you needs to know that you are willing to resort to a higher authority, somebody who's got authority over them, and for them to not think that it's something that they can get away with or do it again, because violence in relationship tends to escalate. So I'm not going to hit anybody I'm in relationship with, and I don't think somebody should feel that they have a right to hit myself, or if anybody's listening and they're that way disposed, you know, nobody has a right to hit their partner. I just think it's wrong. So yeah, and I think the church has a part to play in combating domestic violence, and anything I write about, whether it's sexual trafficking or whatever, we've got a voice, and we should, as a church, we should use it. We stand for something, you know. We should be a moral voice in society and stuff. So that's why, you know, when I'm there typing, you know, you think that you're preaching with the pen. Do you understand what I mean? And because you're kind of far removed from somebody, it's like because you're far removed, you do have that freedom to write what you feel, and the fact that it's going to have an impact, you know, you're hoping and you're praying that somebody will get the gist of what you're trying to say.
I really like the answer, especially how you broke it down and you kind of summarized some of the articles that I was reading.
Okay. It's always, you know, like, because in our community, the Black community, you don't always get that feedback, because we don't really write letters per se. To say we like this or like that. So sometimes you can just you write your story and that's it. It's just out there and you don't know how people have responded to it. So it's good to hear you said that you've read it and you think, oh, that's interesting and kind of stuff. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I just admire your culture, your loyalty to the culture, to building the Black British faith culture. You know, there's not a lot of people that, you know, have that boldness to step out and try and build something and report on issues that are affecting our community. Someone with your gifts could have easily have gone on BBC or ITV or Channel 4. What has kept you, like, serving this community? what has motivated you to kind of build the culture?
I think that part of it is that I felt a call to do what I do. So I really feel that it's what God wanted me to do. So at the thing about The Voice back in the day, if people don't know about it, it's Britain's leading black newspaper. And back in the day when I started, which was in 1988, I think it was, I was about 10 at the time. No, I'm joking. But when I started writing for The Voice, you know, it was really one of the few outlets where budding young black journalists could cut their teeth. So what you would find would people would come, they'd work on it for a while, then they'd leave, they'd go to, and people who've worked at The Voice, they've gone on to work at the Sunday Times, the Telegraph, the BBC, Al Jazeera, you know, all the key media outlets. The Voice was a training ground. So really, by rights, I really should have been thinking of moving on, but I really felt that it's what God wanted me to do. So that's why I did it. And so sometimes I'd see people, you know, going off to work for another media house, and part of me would be thinking, oh, you know, maybe I should be applying to go and work somewhere else or whatever. But I just felt compelled, and I also wanted to just really write about my faith community that I was a part of. I just felt a passion to do it. I felt called to do it, and I did it.
That's really powerful because, you know, there are so many young, even people within the BAME community that think that success is only when you're on national television or when everybody knows who you are. But what you've done for the faith community is that you've kind of given the Black British faith community a voice. Before we had the likes of you and a few others, you know, there was no Black British faith-based journalism. It didn't exist,
No.
especially for the BAME community. So yeah, I've literally been following you. I've known about you for years from when I was little.
Oh,
So
right. Okay. When
it's
you
kind
were
of
5. So I was 10 and you were 5. Okay.
so yeah, yeah, kind of feels surreal at the moment. But I know that Michelle has another question for you.
Okay.
So this is probably inaccurate. So you celebrated 30 years with The Voice.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I was going to say that number's probably not right, considering you were only 8.
I was a child prodigy.
Exactly. And that's perfect, because I was gonna. My question is, what advice or information would you give to young black people who want to start off in journalism?
You know, things are so open up now. Do you understand what I mean? You know, back in the day, there was The Voice, the BBC, the Nationals. Now you've got all these TV stations. You know, you go on Sky, there's all these stations that have, you know, journalistic aspects to them. You know, I'm talking about black stations. There's a community stations. Then there's all the websites where you can get phenomenal experience doing stories. So the world is broad. Do you understand what I mean? You know, you just follow your passion, see where you can get some work experience. People are even doing their own stuff these days. So I read there's a lady who's on CNN, I can't remember her name, but what she did, I think she used her smartphone to do stories, just her doing her stories, or I don't know where she uploaded them. But when she saw an advert to work on CNN, she sent them stuff that she'd done. You can blog. Do you understand what I mean? If you can't get a job, you can blog. You know, there's so much ways you can express your writing. But I would say to any young person who wants to go into journalism, have an idea of what you want to write about and apply to publications, websites, or whatever that report on, publish those kind of stories, so you can cut your teeth and get your experience. Because the thing about media, and I'm sure that is still the case, is that you need to have experience, you know, and any kind of experience, whether it's in radio, print, or TV, because they all interlink, they interchange with each other. So just find ways you can get experience, you know, do it for free. I know that the millennials like to get paid, but it's always good to do stuff for free if you can. If not, find things to do, find things to write about. There's so much things you you can write about. You can even put your stories up on social media, you know. It's a different new world out there, and there's so much opportunities, you know. You're able to achieve and pursue your dream now.
That's right. Thank you.
Uh, and just even following on from your last question, you've interviewed so many amazing people, from Kirk Franklin to Yolanda Adams to even people within Parliament and politics. So I just wanted to ask you, who has been your best interviewee today, if you can say that?
I don't know if I can. Have I had a favourite? I've interviewed so many people.
Yeah.
People that have stood out for me. I remember interviewing the late what's his name, Dr. Miles Monroe, when I was younger, in my 20s, I think it was, or early 30s. And what struck me, he's a preacher, leading preacher from the Bahamas, who unfortunately died in a plane crash some years ago. But what I remember about him was that he was very polite, and just the way that he treated his wife, he treated her like she was a queen. So that really kind of struck a chord with me. Who else has I don't know, I've just interviewed so many people, you know. I tell you, one person I interviewed that kind of still remains with me. I interviewed Pastor Matthew Ashimawolo, who was pastor of KICC. I got to also work for them as well. But I remember when I first interviewed him, and I went to go and interview him in Barking. He had an office in Barking under the flyover or whatever. And he just, I mean, he would have been about maybe in his 30s at the time. But however, he just looked really young. So that's what struck me. And then when he went on to open the Britain's largest church for 100 years, that's the headline for it, a 4,000-seater building in Hackney. It's no longer there because the Olympic Committee bought that land for the Olympics. I was just kind of amazed that I interviewed this guy in this really small office in Barking, who had a vision to open a massive church, which he opened maybe 2 or 3 years after I interviewed him. And what I suppose what it highlighted to me is that you can't be contained by where you are. It's all about how you think and what you envision, and you actually going out to make that happen and stuff. So that's what I remember about Pastor Matthew. Who else? In my younger days, I used to interview a lot of the church leaders from back in the day. That's in the 1980s and 90s, and I used to enjoy doing that. You know, I just felt it was important that as a journalist and as a writer to actually profile our leaders and not just focus on music, because it can be so easy to just focus on the gospel music that comes out of our churches, when really our churches are built on the work and the prayers of our leaders. And I just felt it was important to profile them. So I enjoyed doing that as well. But nobody, I can't think of, I just can't. You know, you just meet so many people. After a while, it's like, they all blur. No, they don't all blur. But you just get to meet. I mean, I've been writing that column for 30 years. So imagine I produce one column like for 48 weeks of the year and stuff. There was a point where I had 2 pages that I had to fill. So you can just imagine, I've interviewed loads of people. That's 40 times, I mean, that's 30 times 48. That's a lot of people. Look at him laughing, but it's the truth. And I interviewed them. I didn't just work from press releases. I actually interviewed them, you know. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for that. And I also liked how you talked about the different lessons you learned from different people. So that's even better than giving us information on your favorite interviewees, talking about the lessons you've learned. Because sometimes when you interview someone, you don't actually process what you've actually learned from them. You just think, oh yeah, I've done an interview. But it's nice that you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about what's great and what I liked about, well, I still interview occasionally, is you just learn, you can learn from anybody. Do you understand what I mean? It doesn't matter how famous or not famous, not famous, how unfamous they are. Particularly, I used to interview people who did community work. So they might not be well known, but it's just the passion that they have and the desire that they have to serve humanity, that kind of touches you really. So it's just about the essence of the person, the fact that they're a Christian and the fact that they want to serve humanity. For me, there's always lessons to be learned from people. It doesn't matter how high or low that they are. If you look for the lesson, you'll find it.
Yeah, it's really, really encouraging. And you've done a lot of work for addressing the inequality, whether it been in policing or
Well, I don't
any
know
other
if
area.
addressing inequality. Yeah, I wouldn't describe myself as doing that. I might have written about it, but I wouldn't go as far because I'm a writer, so I might turn the spotlight on certain things. I can't say that I was my focus on a lot of what I wrote was spiritual stuff, but obviously if certain things spill over into things that were happening in wider society, obviously they spill over sometimes into the church stuff, and then I would write about that. But I wouldn't say that I was championing against inequality, even though I think that it's wrong,
Yeah. So you've addressed the inequality in your different articles. What
Okay.
advice would you give to a young Black person that feels kind of hard done by or victimized by the current stop and search process in place?
What advice would I give? I just think for me, I just think it's so important when you're young for you to find hope somewhere, and not hoping where people are quite negative, but to look around and see where the goodness is. I personally believe that, and I stand to be corrected. No matter how dark something may seem, I always believe that God will shine a little bit of light somewhere. And young people, young Black men in particular, I would encourage them to hold on to it, because sometimes what tends to happen, what happens, I know people who've got children, doing their best, and their children, normally the guys, just get caught up in company that they really shouldn't get caught up in, and go down a road that they should not go down, because they follow the crowd and they follow their friends. When I was growing up, one of the things that our Caribbean parents used to hammer home is don't follow friend. That used to be hammered home. It was like, have your own mind. Go and encourage you to go around with good people. Obviously, when you're a young person, there's research now that says, a teenage person's brain is not fully developed. However, the adults that are in their life need to hammer it home. Too many young people follow people who are not leading them anywhere positive. And to me, that breaks my heart, because I think our parents came from the Caribbean here for opportunity. And the Windrush generation, as we now call them, battled so much racism, put up with being treated very poorly, in order for our generation and subsequent generations to have a better life. And there are great, in spite of the racism, I personally believe that there's great opportunities for people to have here. And it's for us to really, for us to kind of say to young people, it is possible, and to demonstrate people who have achieved against the odds, done well. And I'm not even talking about people, who, like Obama, even though that's a great achievement. Sometimes people just need to see people that they live with, earning decent money, having a decent life, and doing it above board, doing it honestly and respectfully, and looking after their children and their families. Young people need to see that, and where it's happening, we need to show it to them, because it is there and it is possible to be successful. I mean, I've been I've been in the church for most of my life since I was 15, and I have to say that I've been surrounded by success. I've been surrounded by Black Christians, Black people, men and women, who are doing okay. And you know, we're not all downtrodden. We're not all depressed. We're not all living in poverty. You know, many of us have found through having God in our life, it has actually raised our aspiration. And that includes young men and young women who would say to you, my life was going nowhere, but I found the Lord. Sorry, I'm very religious, so I'm going to go down that trick. But their faith has helped them to succeed, because that's what following godly principles does. It makes you recognize where the opportunities are and you just go after them. And that's what we need to point out for our young people. You know, you're not, you know, when we came here, we did not come here to fill up prisons. They weren't for us. You know, stay away from that. Stay away from that life. It takes the most precious thing you have is your time and your energy. Why should you spend your time in a cage, in a prison where every aspect of your life is controlled? Value your freedom, do good, try and stay away from those friends who are pulling you down a negative road. And then it's for us as parents to find, I'm not a parent, but for parents to find interesting things for their kids to do, things that they are passionate about, things that take up their time, things that will develop them as human beings, or join some social initiative that helps to build young Black men, like 100 Black Men of London is the one that comes to mind. And I'm sure that there's others. There are things that people can do out there in order to kind of help their young boys so that when they get stopped by the police, they can be calm. Sorry, that was a bit of me going off there. But so that, you know, and they need to be taught how to respond when the police try and stop and search them. Because most of the time, I would assume, because I've never experienced it, so it's difficult for me to understand, but I'm sure that when the police stop and search them, they rile them to get a response. So somebody needs to be teaching them how they behave in situations like that. They're going to have to be like a soldier.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's me. I can go off, you know, because I've interviewed so many preachers, you know, you can just go blah, 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 blah.
No, it was a brilliant answer. There was nothing you said there that was going off to me. It was quite brilliant.
You're so kind. You're so kind.
I'm being genuinely honest. Like, I'm actually taken back by what you said. So that's brilliant. Michelle, I know you have some more questions for Marcia.
So the next question that I was going to ask is, what do you believe should be the appropriate response to the from the Black community concerning COVID? I'll give you time to think about that, because we had a very interesting discussion. We've been having very interesting discussion at our church over the last.
What church is that?
So I've actually I've actually started going back to my home church because it's online. I'm originally from Reading. So I've gone back to my old church, which is the Church of God of Prophecy in Reading.
Okay. I just recently did some stuff for them promoting their online discussion about the vaccine.
Yes. That's been an ongoing thing for a long.
Oh, is it? Well, they had a lot of people. You've had over 3,000 views on it.
I'm not going to, I must be honest. I would say that I've really focused just on my local church. So the bigger picture, but I know that it's been a very, hot topic. And I don't want to incite,
provoke?
Not provoke, when, you know, false information and stuff.
Right, okay. Because, the conspiracy theories. Like, if you take the vaccine, when you go through the airport, it's all going to go, and they're going to see all the yellow flowing through your body. Okay.
Exactly. Well, some of the theories is about, you know, it being linked to the mark. sort of thing. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts were. You know, there's a lot, obviously, that the black community is very, very skeptical. Not only the black community, the Asian community, a lot of the communities are very skeptical about the vaccine.
Vaccine.
Just wanted to get your view on
Well,
things.
my view was this. I mean, I don't really like to have medical things in my body, drugs or whatever, if I don't need to have them. And I do recall being really a little bit skeptical about the vaccine. However, my church, we had open discussion about the vaccine, and we invited four people involved, 4 people from the medical profession to answer questions. I also did some stuff with a company, a PR company that brought together Black church leaders, and they were addressed by key figures from the National Health Service to answer any questions that they might have. So my church, the Ark, they held something. And what I found really interesting in terms of the answers that were given was that in one question they were asked was, why has the vaccine been developed so quickly? Because obviously people are a little bit skeptical. It's been really, really quick. So the answer we were given is that one of the reasons is because in this particular instance, governments across the world have flung money into research. So whereas before, when you research a drug, money is given, then it runs out, and then you need to go and search for it, and then it runs out. A lot of brains have been put into trying to find a cure for for COVID-19, and they've got a bank of money, they've got lots of money that they can draw on to do that research. So that kind of resonated with me, because many years ago, I used to run a gospel music agency, and we supplied some singers for an event that was held at the one of the Natural History Museum in Kensington. Now, I bring that up because during the course of that booking, they had to transform that one of the rooms into a banqueting room. And it took them about an hour and a half to do that, because they had about 50 or 60 people working on it all at one time, bringing out the tables, putting the knife and forks on, etc. So that said to me that when you have a lot of hands working on something, it can be done very, very quickly. So I just computed that if that is the case of what they've done with the vaccine, and I know that prior to was it the Pfizer? I can't pronounce it properly. I know that they tested that on about maybe 40,000 people across the world in about 6 nations, Brazil, Turkey, I think Australia, and some other things. So for me, that kind of answered one of my key issues that I had with it. And obviously, as COVID, as it's gone on, and the loss of people from our community, in terms of, I go on social media every day. Every day you go on, someone's dying. I mean, we know that people die. We know that people leave this earth. But it's just like, it's been relentless. It's been relentless. Yeah. And even for Church of God of Prophecy, I remember last year, you lost about four or five key people. It was just it's just been heartrending. It's just been heartrending. So for me, it's like, I understand the skepticism totally, particularly with regards to how Black people have been treated. Maybe not so much here, but people keep mentioning what happened in the States and stuff like that. But on the other hand, nobody's coming up with, okay, if we don't take the vaccine, what's the alternative? Exactly. The alternative is that we say bye-bye world for some people. Look at him laughing, because some of us have got underlying health conditions, which has made people quite susceptible. It's a tragedy. Every day, you see people on Facebook, my mum's gone because of COVID. It's tragic. I know, but the other thing that I understand with the vaccine is that it's not a cure for COVID. What it means is that if you catch it, the symptoms won't be so bad. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah. So I think you have to have it every year anyway.
Yeah, which you like what you do with the flu jab.
Yeah, Yeah, because
But
it
we
is
don't.
good, isn't it?
But you know, my thing is that okay, you're not going to take the vaccine. What are
The
we gonna What are we
alternative,
gonna
yeah,
do
yeah, yeah,
and
definitely.
stuff? You know, because I'm tell people ask me how I am now, and I say I'm blessed, busy, and bored. Because it's like Groundhog Day now, isn't it? Every day you're in your house, you know. I haven't been on the train. No, I've been on the train once since the lockdown. Other people are going about freely, so maybe I'm taking it a little bit too seriously. But it's like you just feel like you feel your life is on hold.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's a surreal time, isn't it? It's
It
very
is a
surreal.
bit. It is a bit. How are you finding it?
Michelle, do you want to go first? Oh,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's funny enough that you say that. I'm actually feeling quite invincible at the moment because
Okay. Ooh.
well, no, I shouldn't say that. I should say that the blood of Jesus has covered me
Okay.
immensely. So we've had it's actually in my house at the moment. I've had four of my three of my children and my
Oh.
husband have tested positive.
Oh
Thank
wow.
God
Okay.
that it hasn't affected them too badly. It's just like a bad cold or a
Okay.
headache and that. But the ironic thing is, I went for a test yesterday and it came back as negative, and I'm like,
Okay. Okay.
I have something here that is obviously impervious to this, so I'm going to sell
Okay.
it. So yeah, but it has been it's been a total disaster in one sense, but on another hand, there's been so much good that has come out of it as well. I understand what you're saying in terms of, I mean, I've literally my WhatsApp. Sometimes I don't want to look at it because of the amount of as you say, bad news, as it were, to the point we have a little prayer group on there, and it got so inundated with, can you pray for this? And I was like, oh, I've got to get the big guns in, and it was like, Mum, get a piece of paper, please, and pray for this one, this. It was so much, but yeah, what can you do? God is, He's blessed some, and He's called some home. So yeah, what can
Yeah.
you say?
Yeah, you can't say anything really. I mean, I go on, like I say, I go into Facebook and you see that someone's died and or they've passed, and it's like you have to say rest in peace, but it's like, oh, not today,
Yeah,
not again. Do you understand what I mean? And it's not because you don't feel the compassion, but it's like it's relentless.
yeah,
It's
it's draining.
relentless. So
It's
you
draining.
have to kind of protect your
Yeah,
mental health. But obviously, for the families, it's they're losing a loved one possibly before they thought they were due to go. So
yeah,
that's what's really sad.
definitely.
it, your discussion was really interesting even just now because there was another question that I had that, kind of resonates with, what you've been discussing because, for some young people, I know even including myself, last year, you can lose a lot of family members in the space of 1 year because of COVID.
Mm.
So and because of that lockdown and because of, what the media is saying versus, what the church is saying, there are some young people that are in the middle and they have heavy anxiety because they got information on one side saying the COVID threat is very real. And they got the information on the other side saying, where we're protected by God, we can just go out, we can do what we want, we don't need to take the vaccine. And then there's also young people that also are in lockdown as well. So they're having to process all of this information at the same time. So what advice would you give to a young person whose anxiety is at the tipping point because of all the information, all of the conflicting information they're having surrounding COVID?
Ooh, that's a bit of a difficult one. Um, what advice would I have for a young person? I think it's always good to talk. It's
Hmm.
always good to talk, and so you can get out your anxiety. So it's been a long time since I was young, so that's why I was like. But I think it's always good to talk. So what I'm actually promoting this free project for young people. This that's been put on by this organization, and it's been run online. And one of the I contacted them to find out how it was going, and they said what they really liked about it is the fact that the young people have been able to share how they're feeling, and there was a lot of anxiety. So it's not even really, I should be saying to young people, you know, whatever. It's really for adults to provide that space where they can share that anxiety, because some of the anxiety that they're experiencing, the adults will be able to say how they can alleviate it or reassure them. Because if they've got anxiety about the COVID, then that should be shared with somebody who has knowledge about COVID, knowledge about COVID vaccine or what have you, you know. And the great thing about the time we are now, you can bring people together very inexpensively on Zoom. It can hold up to 100 young people. You can even have breakout rooms on it, which I've just recently discovered. Do you understand what I mean? So I think that amidst all the difficulty, there's ways in which you can bring young people together to help calm their fears, let them know that they're loved, that God loves them, that, you know, you will do your best as an adult to keep them protected, and that you're a listening ear. Because I think a lot of the time with anxiety, even us as adults, I find with myself when I get stressed or whatever, you just need to let it out. You just need to find somebody to talk to. So it's best a young person talks to somebody who's sensible, an adult who hopefully is sensible, than sometimes their friends who will just maybe just help, you know. It's like, you know, negativity can breed company. So it's best that they talk to an adult, really. So really it's for the adults, the youth leaders within a church setting, to provide that kind of environment where they've got that outlet and where they can just share very freely how they're feeling. So I was quite surprised when this person came back to me to say that, you know, the young people were anxious, but their online event provided them with a forum that they could talk. So I think it's just providing places that they can talk, really.
Yeah, thank you for the answer.
Are you a
Really.
youth leader?
Oh no, I'm a young person myself. I'm 26, but
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
Um,
you know how to help your fellow young people. Why are you asking me?
sometimes it's always better for a young person to hear it from somebody like you that's
Are you
well
okay?
respected.
So what
Yeah,
church do you go to?
I'm a member of the New Testament Church of God.
Which one?
I go to Harrow New Testament Church of God on the Wilton District. Yeah,
Okay.
I've been there for about 14 years now.
Oh wow, so you're a church baby then.
Yeah, yeah. I'd also like to just say, because you started Marcia Dixon Relations, which was your company after, you know, all the experiences that you've had. So what is some of the advice you'd give to young people that want to kind of follow in your footsteps and start their own businesses and branch out?
Well, we live in an age where everybody's starting a business, aren't you know? It's just the age of entrepreneurism, really. What advice would I give? I think it's, you know, I don't think people should feel forced to set up a business, because it somehow sometimes it feels like that. Everybody's on this kind of entrepreneurial entrepreneurial trip, which is good, but running a business is not easy. So, like I said, maybe um, many years ago, me and two other friends, we set up a gospel music agency. You know, you have big dreams, you're going to make lots of money or whatever. And it didn't last very long. Not that it was a bad thing. We did some good bookings. But I would say, you know, looking back when back then, we had the passion, but we didn't have the knowledge. So I would say, in terms of knowledge, in terms of, you know, the kind of things you really have to do to make a business work. You need to understand the market. It's not just about producing a great website or great public PR materials. You have to go out and network. You have to meet people. You have to push. There's so much things involved, and sometimes, you know, you're starting out in business and you don't necessarily make money in the beginning. So I would say to anybody, if you're really serious about running a business, go and do a business course. You know, most councils, it seems, have some kind of business department where they run free courses about setting up your business, do a business so you can do a business plan, work out your marketing strategy, work out, your expected income and expenditure from, during the, your years of doing, your first few years of doing business. It's worthwhile doing it. It's worthwhile doing it properly. It's worthwhile getting the skills and understanding what it means to run a business, understand the area that you want to go into, talk to people if necessary, get a business mentor. I think that makes a real big difference. Get somewhere, talk to someone who's been where you want to go. I think that's really, really important. I would advise anybody to do that, actually. I think that's one of the best things, even in terms of like the Christian walk. When I look back on my Christian walk, I'm not blaming anybody, but I think what's really good and what would really help young Christians, really help them find out what their purpose is and help them develop better spiritually, is for them to be assigned a mentor. Because really you're left to get on with it by yourself, and nothing wrong with that. You'll muddle along, God will guide you, but it's, we're better when we get people inputting into us, pouring into us is the word that they use, or imparting into us, and just sharing what they know about God with us on a very more personal level. I'm a person grew up in church where you go church meetings and you hear the preacher, and that's how you learn about God and about your faith. But sometimes you need that, you need that personal input as well. And I think that with regards to what I see, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, that's what maybe your generation is getting now. Mm-hmm. More input from adults, in terms of the adults preached to us and we just kind of picked it up. That's how it was. Not that I'm complaining, but that's how it was back then, because I used to go down to Brighton, to do reports. Mm-hmm. Did you ever go Brighton, Michelle?
Yeah. Yeah, Brighton Centre. Yeah. I think the last time I went was 90. No, it was 80 something.
Oh wow! So you didn't go that often then? Ooh.
No, what happened was I kind of I did walk away for a little while.
Oh, I see. Okay, cool. Cool. But yeah, they were good days.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for that answer and just breaking it down so that young people can take notes while they're listening to this interview.
So. If they listen. Too funny.
So, Michelle, I know you have a couple more questions for.
Yeah. So I think mine's the last one in terms of the you did excuse me, sorry. In your public consultancy role, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you've done with the NHS and with the Met Police, I believe?
Yeah, okay. I'll start with the Met Police stuff first, because that was many years ago. What happened was that, I don't know if you've been watching those programs that have been produced by Steve McQueen.
Yes.
Yeah. What's it called again? Small Axe or something like that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, one of the characters on that was a guy called Leroy Logan. So he's a Christian. There was a program about a police guy.
Yes.
Acted by, what's his name? John
Boyega.
Yeah. Forgive me, John, because I haven't pronounced your name properly. However, he played Leroy Logan. Yeah. Now, Leroy Logan, if I remember correctly, was borough superintendent, I think it was, of Hackney. And they had a gang problem in Hackney and in Walthamstow. So what he put an idea to his superiors, that what they could do to reach these young people who were predominantly Black that were in these gangs was to bring over a group of Christians from America. Have you heard of Nicky Cruz?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. To bring over Nicky Cruz and some of the young people that had been saved from under his ministry, because they were like gangbangers, people in gangs or whatever, to actually go and minister to places where these young people were congregated, which was in like Walthamstow and Hackney or whatever. So I was just doing the PR for that. I'd go along, they'd have they were having kind of like evangelistic meetings where they might play some of the music, like hip hop or whatever. share their testimonies, and maybe preach a message. I mean, some of the times it lasted about a week, the crusade, and not the crusade. It wasn't a crusade per se. I'm trying to think of the right way to explain it. It's like you'd go to maybe a park where the young gang members would meet, play music, like I said, share a testimony. And a lot of the times they would gather around to listen, because obviously it was young people that looked like them, living a lifestyle that used to live the lifestyle that they were now living, and just sharing their story. So I was just doing the PR for that in terms of the Metropolitan Police. And it culminated with a big evangelistic outreach at KICC at the time, and a number of young people became Christians as a result of that. But I remember Leroy getting a bit of flack for that, because it's obviously religion, using religion to try and change the behaviour of gang members. But we know as Black people that a lot of the time our young people, they've had some kind of religious influence. Maybe that was about 10, 12 years ago. It might be changing now, but they have some kind of religious influence. So I think he was trying to use that in terms of influencing the young people's behavior to a more positive vein. So that's what I worked on. So that was good. With regards to the NHS, sorry, it was just dealing with a lot of sick campaigns to deal with breast cancer, bladder cancer. So it's not like happy stuff per se. It's like getting people to realize, recognize rather, symptoms of certain diseases and stuff like that, and just raise awareness really. But hey, great stuff to work on. I enjoy it and stuff like that.
Pleasure speaking with you today and hearing hearing the things that you've done. And I personally feel that I've known you for years, because I feel that we're very similar in terms of our beliefs and the way that we look at things. So it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and yeah, thank you so much.